Thank you. Thank you very much for joining me today. This is the fourth day in a row that I'm doing a free webinar. Let me start the live on Instagram also. Thank you for your patience. Uh, so this is the fourth day that I am doing a free webinar from the realm of permaculture. I am providing you, the viewer, with some very simple, basic notions from the realm of permaculture, from the course that I'm teaching starting September 4th. 20 live sessions available for free to anyone to watch live, and then with an invitation for anyone that's watching them live to maybe keep them for a very small donation of $17 and watch these presentations. All the presentations are from a very standard internationally taught permaculture design course. So if anybody's watching it for free, either live or keeps the recordings, you really are getting the gist of a permaculture design certification course. And then again, an invitation to people to commit to the full content of that permaculture course and or engage with me and other designers and instructors in my network to get certified. And you can do it between September 2024 and February 2025. So with that said, I'm just going to go straight into it. So I've done three so far. One of them was on the importance of holistic context analysis in permaculture design, why that is very important to go through that. As you will see, I am going to share the slide of the permaculture design process that I'm going through in the course. And probably I'm going to touch again on that context, on that concept of the importance of the um, holistic conceptual, holistic context analysis in permaculture design. The second one was on how we here at Sun and Bloom Farms, how we used permaculture design to how permaculture design helped us purchase our farm. So just some information on what did we do, how did we use the knowledge of permaculture to raise funds in multiple ways, including, having different small enterprises and making income that way, raising capital that way, but also raising different types of capital, also social capital, intellectual capital, experiential capital. So and last night I shared about water and gardens and how to use permaculture um, concepts uh, to basically bring resilience to water and gardens in the landscape. So how to have water resilience in landscapes. I'm in Missouri. It does rain a lot, but we do have drought periods. And just because it rains a lot, for example, here, that doesn't mean that everybody is resilient from a point of view of the needs of using water in a landscape. So I shared a few important ideas on where do we start to what do we need to understand in order to take actions to be able to make sure we resiliently have access to water. And then, of course, I talked about resilience in the gardens, some things about soil. So today I'm talking about animal integration in permaculture landscapes, approaches for animal landscape, and the stewards' well-being, the stewards being the people that are working with the animals in the landscape. I'm sorry for that. So these are just some very simple concepts that I am sharing that will be expanded in the course itself. This is a very fun, very nice presentation that with concepts that maybe a lot of people have not heard about before. And I'm going to share at one point from this really beautiful book. Anna Maria and I have been enjoying this herbal handbook for farm and stable. Really amazing. We actually have a lot of local people reaching out to us right now to ask us, how do you raise your animals with no chemicals? Well, how did grandma do it? And grandma's grandma do it for the longest time. How have we done it? So it's definitely possible in the context of feeding a lot of people also with animal protein. So animal integration in permaculture landscapes, approaches for animal landscape, and the steward's well-being. So first of all, one big statement here, if anybody would like to debate about this, I really don't like to debate on this subject particularly. But a big statement here, and I do have a lot of arguments if anyone would like to look at research and look at a lot of resources to validate or counter the statement. And the statement is that the healthiest ecosystems on the planet have a balanced diversity of plants and animals. And I'll explain what that word there. I didn't even want to put the word balanced. I wanted to just say the healthiest ecosystems on the planet have a diversity of plants and animals on them. But I'll leave the balance there so that we can have some explanations. And then the second statement is that some of the most degraded ecosystems on the planet have or had a high concentration of the same plants and or animals in one space, talking about monocultures here. And I wanted to get the attention to this very simple poster here with a species diversity ranking on our planet. And I wanted to get the attention on, there's like different types of animals here at the top that are color coded with, let's say, the light blue, these are birds. The green, let's see, I have to actually look closer to see, but you can tell that there's like different color coded, different animals, marine animals, flying animals, land animals, crawling animals. And this is just basically the wild animals. And then we have insects. Okay, so we have representatives from the insects. And if you look here to the right, you'll be able to see that the highest diversity, but also number of things, of species on this planet are from the insect and the bug, basically, kingdom here. I'm not doing the official permaculture design certification course, so I'm probably gonna jump on certain concepts here back and forth, but and not using the correct scientific complete language. Just wanted to make the point that if we look that's the highest number of diversity and highest number of living beings on this planet, but we don't want them in our garden, well, we're in trouble here. If we don't want them in our ecosystems that where we grow food, where we live, then we're in trouble. So we have to understand that this is how things are. And actually, this one does not include domesticated animals here. And domesticated animals are lower in diversity, but definitely very numerous also. So I didn't put that poster because certain posters are not very objective. Most posters, when they show wildlife versus domesticated animals can be pretty subjective also, depending on what the poster wants to show. Just work with these two concepts here. Well, three concepts. One, that the healthiest ecosystems on the planet have a balanced diversity of plants and animals. What does that mean? Well, that means that the more types of animals and plants in a good balance, they are creating the health of that ecosystems. And ecosystems that have a reduced number or only, one species in one space, these are the most degraded ecosystems. So how could that look like? So Feedlots is a big example of just cows in one place that are being force fed, and they have to get all kinds of like chemical injections in order to have these animals survive those conditions of being super packed and force fed to fatten up to basically get to people's plates. Permaculture is like really, really advocating, not against, maybe, I'm not going to say against, but definitely advocating in a different direction. Permaculture is not necessarily inviting us to say, hey, the solution here is not to eat animal protein. And again, I am going to acknowledge that some people already got possibly triggered by this statement. But still, there is a very high percentage of population on this planet that consumes animal protein for different reasons. That's another big conversation in itself. I do have a lot of resources on that if you are interested when it comes to health of people that eat proteins. But that's, again, kind of controversial these days. I'm just going to make the statement here and say that in permaculture, animal protein is something good, something to respect, something to love and revere, and that there are ways to raise animal protein that are well balanced and find justifications in the ecosystem, and both basically environmental, economic, and social and cultural justifications. So these three things here, I really wanted to have the bugs there for you just to kind of like have a conversation later about that. So how we want to think about animals in permaculture is to think about them as landscape managers that you would be working with. And I forgot a G here, but I'm going to put it live on Facebook. Okay. So so we're thinking about animals as landscape managers that we would be working with. And I have a few examples here. For example, different domesticated animals and their functions in the landscape, and then the amount of space that it would be needed in order, for specific numbers of animals to live, in balance with everything else, kind of like with the first statement, to make sure that they maintain and they do not degrade the ecosystem, but they actually make it healthy, and they're really well integrated. I personally here on the farm have made a lot of mistakes, actually continue to make some mistakes, just basically really thinking about animal welfare sometimes, and just kind of going overboard trying to do so much for them. And then you can actually see that if it doesn't work for the animal, for myself, it's not going to work for the ecosystem either. So animals are amazing. And look, for example, when you look at these numbers here, like that poultry, for example, you shouldn't have more than 100 chickens per acres. That's because chickens can really destroy landscape. They will scratch, they will move soil, they will apply a lot of high nitrogen manure that can actually kill a lot of plants. It's toxic in that format if there's a lot of it, compared to it spread out and kind of like not repeatedly layer after layer of manure. That could really be really good for the landscape. So look, for example, here it says that a poultry at 100 chickens per acre, they increase garden or soil fertility. They remove insects and pests in general. They have low soil impact if they are in that specific type of number on that 1 acre or in the space, if we respect that kind of density. They provide eggs. I did take out meat here before, but again, I already acknowledged that in permaculture, in the right conditions, animal protein is acceptable and actually even indicated. And they also need very minimal space in general. So chickens here. And then there's some breeds here that are great breeds. Well, here at Sun and Bloom Farms, 90% of the chickens that we have are heritage breeds, and there are many reasons for that. They bring more resilience to access um, uh, to all the benefits of chickens, because we can I'll say the word, we can multiply them ourselves, so they can multiply naturally, versus more of the hybrid species that are out there that are laying a lot of eggs or are producing really good meat in really fast time. Those hybrid species will not be able to reproduce true to um, true to uh, the type of chicken it is, the breed it is. Sometimes not, the eggs will not even hatch in a lot of the newer hybrid, or even if they keep the same name, for example, Cornish crosses, even if they keep the same name of this breed, I don't know if the word is evolved, but it has changed a lot how this breed has been achieved. So heritage breeds can reproduce with a male and a female rooster. You can reproduce the same kind of breeds over and over, and you can look at the breeds and see what kind of eggs they make. So for example, my partner Anna Maria really loves these first ones, the Americanas, because they make blue eggs. And then there's some other ones that make green eggs and different color eggs. So that's kind of like a fashion in itself. Goats and sheep, 4 per acre. We have a lot of goats here. And every time we pass over 20, this would be the second year that we did that, we find them new homes. Or sincerely, we also consume the protein from the goats. But in general, goats, again, if we look at them as landscape managers, they increase garden fertility. We compost a lot with goat manure in our place here. Goat manure actually could be considered as a slow release fertilizer. It's really powerful. They can manage really vigorous plant growth. So sheep can manage grass. You never need a lawnmower again. Goats can manage both grass and a lot of shrub material. If you want to maintain pastures for other animals, goats are great because they will eat a lot of these plants that other animals don't, that are more more fibrous, and that's what goats really like. But they can definitely damage trees, and I've had a lot of fruit trees that the goats have damaged because they weren't when you manage their space correctly. They're really great escape artists. So yeah, it could be sometimes not very fun managing and working with animals. They can provide milk, cheese, wool, for example, from the goats. Of course, as skin. Also, there's some people that make beautiful garments from animal skins too, and they also require minimal space for for the space where they sleep, for milking, um, and even roaming in the forest. We have a lot of acres. Our goats have access to about 20 acres. Um, and it's really beautiful to see them. I'll show you some pictures at the end and maybe a video also to see how happy they are when they go. Again, more of these ideas here. I'm not going to go animal by animal, but just wanted to kind of give an idea that we can look at animals and think in terms of like, oh, wow, what are the benefits that they bring to the entire landscape itself? Not just to us directly, hey, eggs and meat, for example, but fertility to soil, pest management, maybe fertility even to like the wild spaces. So think of animals. Remember, one, we got the healthiest ecosystem on the planet, have a balanced diversity of plants and animals. If they're all in one space, they could be degrading that ecosystem. We want to think of animals as landscape managers that we're working with to improve the ecosystems. And then when we decide that we want animals. There's people that want animals before they ever had any kind of animals, or maybe they had animals growing up, chickens and sheep and goats, and then they get and we make that decision kind of in step one of the design process, where we are envisioning, our future landscape, where we are putting the mission of our future landscape, and the mission could be to feed us and the local community. And in our goals, we want to make sure that we have, I don't know, 50 to 100% of the protein that we consume every year from the landscape. Right. That's kind of like some of the mission, vision, and goals that we would be having in a permaculture design process in the beginning. We want to make sure that we run step 2 through 6 before further decisions, which means, again, and I'm bringing this back over and over and over. We want to make sure that we're digging deep into the holistic context, like of the people that we're designing for, maybe for ourselves or for other clients. The holistic context of the area where we live. Maybe there are laws, rules, and regulations about it. I just read today, for example, that in Missouri, they just passed a law where they will not allow HOAs, homeowners associations, to um, have rules that do not let people have chickens in their backyards. So yay, Missouri's like, we want people to have chickens. Of course, there's still some, hey, if you HOA, if you don't want roosters, we definitely understand that. The law will not prohibit you to prohibit your um, uh, homeowners in your association to not have roosters, right? But they can have chickens. And then again, the context, the deep context, starting in step 4 of the landscape itself. Like, how many animals can we have here? If we design a space for animals to move in, do we have enough space for them? And other things that we want to do, can we create the conditions conducive to, being able to have these animals? So before making decisions to get animals, you would want to like really go step through 2 through 6, which is like really looking at a holistic context of everything to be able to make that choice. So if you make the decision to have these animals, then if you want happy and healthy animals, you will have to design a landscape and management system that works for them, that works for the surrounding ecosystem, and that works for you. I think a lot of people forget about themselves, especially about themselves. People that are well intended to take care of animals, to love animals, to give them a good life, whatever their final destination is, if it's they're going to live their life on the farm, or if they are going to basically transition into our own bodies, right, and incorporate their protein into our body and their energy, which is a really beautiful concept I've learned from a really awesome author of a book called Coming Back to Life, Joanna Macy. It was a really great moment for me, for example, from turning into an omnivore back from a vegan after 7 years of veganism, um, looking at this thing that I had to read in a book, even though grandma said it to me so many times. The animals are there for us to bring continuity to their life through ours. But that's another conversation, and that's philosophy, and it could have a lot of like science to back it up also. And we're looking into that. We're always reflecting on that and researching that. But back to this, if you want happy and healthy animals to really work well, you have to design things that work for them. So designing spaces that make their natural life as easy as possible. So for example, at my place here, we're having a problem because the system doesn't work really great for us anymore. And we have to make kind of a pretty big effort right now to make it work back for us. Right now, it works really well for the chickens and the ecosystem. So if you look outside, a lot of the chickens are roaming freely. But because of their sheer numbers, they are overwhelming us a little bit with cleaning up and keeping the place clean for ourselves, clean and safe for ourselves. So that can happen quite a lot. But there's definitely design decisions that we need to make right now, which are actually more management decisions rather than design decisions to get back at a good balance. So in order to design a space that works for chickens, let's say, we would have to really understand, okay, here's what they're giving us, but here's what they need, and here are kind of like their characteristics and personalities. So we need to figure out how to design with that in mind. And we talk about that during the Level Up Permaculture course quite a lot. I'm very excited to provide some tasks for the people of the design certification level, and the people from the full content will also have access to those tasks if they want to do it on their own, or if the people in the design certification Level Up course level will do it as a task so that they can learn more and be able to make good design decisions. We'll have a task to analyze some of these animals and make some design decisions in different kind of contexts. So really beautiful. We talk about that. We talk about a few animals. We do have a lot of resources on different animals and kind of like what their needs are and how you would design for them. Some of these things are pretty intuitive once you start learning about these animals, like what the design decisions would be. How would you design spaces for these chickens or other animals? Others are not so intuitive, and you would definitely want to learn from other people. We've learned a lot. I just finished reading a book right now about one thing that stuck with me from the book, and I can't believe I don't remember the title, but it's actually part of it. It's recommended. The book is recommended, but there's also like a section from that book that's in the content of the course. And in the book, the idea was like how to get to work with animals, to have mutual trust, and how one or two mistakes with specific species that you would be making, either intentional or not intentional, can really break a relationship, and it takes a long time to clean that up. So again, context is important when we make decisions. My course, besides having a lot of experience, not just with success, but also some failures, I'll be able to share some of those so that other people can make good decisions when they look at their context and they say, I really want to have, goats or sheep, or even chickens, but the context really would be, instead of having 50 chickens, to have just 5, for example, and then just wait for the right time or build the right infrastructure or the right kind of like capacity to take care of more animals. So remember, the bigger plant and animal diversity, the better. The more you look at animals as managers of the landscapes that you can work with and understanding what they can do for the landscape, the better you'll make decisions. Make sure that you really look at your context of the people that would be taking care of these animals, the context of the area, and kind of where would you get feed if you need medicine, if you ever need it. Are there any chicken doctors, for example? Where would you be getting materials to build coops and such? That's kind of like that idea of like looking at the regional context. And then, of course, of the land itself, how many animals could I have in the space, and where would they go, and how easy is going to be for me, especially when we're looking at like a zone analysis. Like, you don't want to have the chickens, for example, very far away from your house if you can't put it in your schedule to be there on a regular basis, or other things don't take you there where they're at. So we'll talk about those things in the course. So here's like a really beautiful picture here. I'll give you a moment to look at it. Really talking about the power of designing for the animal, the ecosystem, and the people themselves. To the left, the industrial agriculture that feeds monoculture crops that take big amounts of land that are getting degraded, because remember, one specific species in one place can really degrade the place. And then further put in the animals in one space where they're confined, they're sad, they're upset, they're force fed, they live in their own manure, um, making it harder, not just for themselves and the ecosystem, but for the people also. A lot of psychological problems can be encountered by people that work in these kind of agricultural systems. Um, and of course, both like things that could be observed right away, but also long-term um, problems compared to the regenerative agriculture um, approach to working with cows that would be improving the ecosystem. And we talk about that. We talk about grazing and rotational grazing. And what does it really mean? And what happens when the cow goes on a specific pasture, eats the top of the grass, and then it's moved right away, leaving some manure behind, maybe bringing some other type of animals to spread that manure, and how long should we let that place be until we can bring the cow back? That's determined by the biodegradability of the manure, but also the capacity of the soil itself to grow the plant back the top where the cow bit, compared to if we're not taking the cow off the land in time. That could create also problems. So we can really manage rotational grazing really smartly, and that would work for us also, because when people manage cattle the right way and other roaming animals like sheep and goats, for example, that manage a landscape really beautifully, and it really helps the landscape, create a lot of like soil, um, deep soil and deep roots of the plants, and a lot of biodiversity, because cows are moving nutrients and seeds around, and support their growth. I think people that, and I've seen it, I don't just think, I know that people that work in these systems are more connected with the animal, with the ecosystem, with themselves, enjoy being in that system more. Again, context matters quite a lot, because it could be overwhelming without experience, or without like looking forward to managing too big of a number of cows. I know people that are struggling with 1 and 2 cows. I cannot even imagine how it would look like with more cows. So we want to design landscapes and management systems that really work with the animal, the ecosystem, and us. That's kind of the idea here. And we want to remember that we always want to design for wild animals also. I mean, it makes complete sense, because they are, that high diversity that's basically keeping the ecosystems healthy. It's both for their own good, for the ecosystem's good, and it's good for us. Some people are hunters. Hunters that I know are probably some of the most environmentally inclined, just environmental conservationists and ecologists that I know out there, more than anyone else. I'm really, really, I never knew this until I met them. I myself have hunted before. Our farm here allows us to hunt, and of course, managing the property to there are amazing laws in Missouri that are not letting people go overboard and hunt a lot. Actually, you can only hunt 1 or 2 deer depending on how much land you have and how many people you have in your family. So it's pretty amazing. But I mean, there's like hundreds, thousands. I don't know if there's thousands going through my particular property, but hundreds for sure throughout the year. And there's so many other animals also. So we need to understand those. There's so much literature on that. The Natural Resource Conservation Services from USDA have a lot. The Missouri Department of Conservation has a lot of booklets. I do have a lot of those inside the course that starts September 4th. Another plug there for you. So get access to that. I did all the research. I put all of those together. Really, really amazing. And I also have recommendations for things that you may want to buy. I promise you, a lot of the free things that I'm giving you access to are so enough for you to have to use to design and make management decisions in the landscape for wildlife. And it's not just like big wildlife, it's small wildlife too. Here's this like insect hotel. Anna Maria, my partner, always teaches how people to make pollinator hotels, wild bee, native bee hotels. So animal integration in permaculture landscapes is all about happy animals, happy plants, happy you, regeneratively, indefinitely, and resiliently. And it can definitely, it can be done. We can um, really simply, in our case, for example, so here's some pictures here, my kids on one of the tractors that we're cutting some of our pasture for some hay, but also for some regeneration of the pasture. Um, we don't have the grazing animals to do that, to keep that kind of like pasture healthy. So we do some cutting of the grass, and we don't even have the right materials. So we're putting quite a lot of effort to get the hay. Here are to the right, you'll see the goats and the pigs in the background there in the pasture. To the left bottom corner, my son Elios with chickens. They love chickens, and my other son also. Myself, a picture with two chicks right there. And then Anna Maria with bees. We have bees here. So some of the things that I wanted to share that we do, and we'll share way more in the course, is that, for example, and I was talking about this book here, I'm going to share it to Instagram, Herbal Handbook for Farm and Stable. There it is. And then this camera here, also really awesome book. We've been looking at it a lot. It's an old book. I think it was first printed, let's see, in 1970, 1952. Um, and this really explains about most of the farm animals. Let's see, sheep, goats, cows, horses, poultry, sheep, dogs, bees, what kind of plants we can integrate in the landscape so that these animals have the right medicinal plants at the right time of the year in the landscape so that they can go and have access to it. So because we're in year 4 right now, the cool thing is that now they do have access to every season of them. And then what kind of herbs and plants can we grow to dry and to keep for to use them at specific times of the year to give to the animals, so we don't have to give them any kind of deworming medication or any kind of medication. Of course, because they are in a pretty natural environment, the barn itself could be a problem sometimes. But in general, goats, for example, in nature, and pigs have these areas where actually they live for long periods of time. So that would be kind of like a barn where there's more poop and more of urine and all of that. But we keep it as clean as possible. And again, back to the herbs that we dry, to make sure that we give it to them at certain times of the year when they're more parasites, they're more susceptible to parasites, specific types of parasites. So we want to make sure that we have the type of herbs to keep them healthy. And just in case, they get sick, and no matter how much we would be managing, sometimes it could still happen. We have the type of medicine to give them to treat them. And we have not had any problems, and I pray that we never will. Anywhere we would be with what kind of animals. So that's huge. That's a big thing. And Anna Maria will lead that session, and we'll share a lot of the resources and ideas and concepts that we're working with, a lot of research-based handbooks and guidebooks that we can provide on that. So this is more than just a permaculture design course. It really is going to provide a lot of resources for people to go for and kind of dive deep in them. So one more thing to say about that. Dogs and cats. I wanted to say something. When you run, for example, a vegetable production operation, or you plant a lot of fruit trees or nut trees, just basically plant crops for food. A big problem that's encountered by a lot of people with farms or homesteads is that you'll have all kinds of pests, all kinds of things that would want to come and eat your vegetables or eat your fruits or your flowers or your herbs. And there's nothing more effective than bringing natural and domesticated predators for those critters. Fences don't work. You would put so many resources in fencing to keep these animals that will figure out a way to get in the garden and do little or pretty big damage. So dogs and cats are huge on farms. Cats, especially because you'll have a lot of mice and rats if you have animals and you store grain or you store any kind of feed. They'll just come and congregate. Even if you protect those well, there will still be some around. But the cats and mice are also protecting gardens from other animals. And just the scent, not a scent that you would just be putting there yourself, buy it on Amazon or something or online, and putting specific type of scent around the garden to keep certain critters. That scent would go away. But if you have live animals that protect your garden, that always go around, then you have really good protection. Of course, there's all kinds of safety and clean you have to think about to basically keep your produce, your things clean and safe for people to consume. That's very important to think about. And then dogs are huge, especially on bigger properties, to keep predators away from small animals, but also bigger animals from gardens. So the right kind of dogs are important too. For example, we have Pyrenees. They're not very easy to work with necessarily, and they can create quite a lot of problems, especially when young, especially when they're not worked with. We've been very fortunate to get a very smart dog. We don't know if there's all the deer around here know she will not kill them, but they know that she's here, and then she's basically communicating, don't come around. This is my land. This is my space, as well as coyotes. And I've even seen her chase hawks and other birds, including owls at night, which is pretty incredible because not too many animals can hear owls. But the Pyrenees have a specific way of patrolling back and forth that they know everything that moves. One big thing about Pyrenees to say, just from our own experience, there are other dogs too that could be used, that you could be working with. They do need a lot of love, and they will roam. They will leave and come back. They will go far. The Pyrenees were used in, trained in huge tracts of land where they would protect sheep, and they would basically, it's kind of interesting to look. We have a tracker on the dog, and we can see kind of how she pushes the boundaries of the space that she is roaming, and she's learning about and keeping animals out of it. They were taught to basically keep wolves and bears and other wild cats away from the flock in very, very smart ways, but extending the territory as they moved with the sheep. So very interesting animals, and we have some resources on that also. So if you wanted to learn more on how to integrate animals in permaculture landscapes, if they're big, if they're large, or if they're small, permaculture landscapes, if they're domesticated animals for different purposes that you may be wanting, and or even like bees, for example. Anna Maria's very powerful natural beekeeper, master beekeeper, and she'll be sharing a lot of that. I invite you to register for the course. Check it out for free if you want to. We would greatly appreciate a donation. That way you'll also have the recordings of those webinars that will be very focused on every topic. I hope you enjoyed this. Very simple. Find it. Level Up Permaculture online. Sun and Bloom Farms, Lucian Toma. You can find me. You can find the course really easily. Check out the topics on the webpage, and I hope you join. I hope you join in. So thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon.